SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music, kicking off a brand new week here, Rhino.
Howdy.
Do you have any plans in 2034 that you've thought about?
Not really.
NASA says that the chances of an asteroid striking the Earth within the next decade have doubled in a matter of weeks.
Yep.
You saw that. They found an asteroid just after Christmas and named it 2024 YR4. They said it could strike this planet in the next decade. The increase of 2.1%. That, according to NASA astronomers. When the detection,
a little less than a 1 in 50 chance.
Yeah, that's right.
Or a little more than a 1 in 50 chance.
A little more. When the detection of the asteroid was announced last month, NASA predicted just a 1.3% chance. So it has improved a bit. It could hit the old planet Earth. How about that? So we got to be on the lookout. All right, I got to share some good news here to start off with. You know, baseball season.
You mean the giant meteor coming to destroy the Earth? Is that the good
That's
news?
not good news.
Well, I have some good news about that before you get to the other good news.
Okay, sure.
They're doing all this cosmological math, and while it's still more likely for the asteroid to hit the planet,
Yeah.
there's a chance it could hit the moon.
Oh,
Yeah. It's like a 1.1% chance of hitting the moon.
wow. How about that? The moon.
We're still talking about crazy odds.
Well, I think what that tells you is just how vast the old universe is, right? How far is the moon away from us? Like 196,000 miles or something
like
crazy
that, yeah.
like that. So you just missed it a little bit there. That's
just a bit outside.
That's just hard to wrap your head around. So you know baseball season at the college level opened up this past weekend. All of Mississippi's teams in action. Auburn, outfielder, Cade Bellew. He hit a home run just hours after his mother, Stacy, lost her life following a long battle with cancer. Unsure if the Auburn player would be able to play on that day, the Auburn coach, Butch Thompson, called his father before the games. Father said his wife would have wanted her son to play. Quote, he said Stacy wanted him to play. I think it was the most inspiring thing we've ever seen. Our crowd is just amazing. They absolutely sensed and knew what was going on with him. An inspiration by Cade Bellew. How about that, man? Incredible. And I'm watching the video of it right now. What a strike it was. He, of course, is waving and pointing his fingers at the fans, especially those in the outfield where the ball cleared the fence, coming in to greet his teammates, the dugout. Lots of smiles and high fives. Really cool. Good for him. So, ex-Navy SEAL, what was his name? Robert O'Neill. That's right. You remember him. He's the one that fired the bullets that killed Osama bin Laden when they found him, holed up.
That's his claim.
That's true.
There are conflicting reports.
That is true. You're right. Well, turns out he's opening up a new business. He's an entrepreneur. He's going to be selling dope. Operator Canna Company. He'll soon start selling his brand of state-licensed marijuana in New York City pot shops. He says, quote, I wanted to get into the cannabis business through my experience in the military and watching vets suffer from things like post-traumatic stress disorder. He's 48. That's what he told the New York Post. I got to tell you, I'm looking at a photo of him inside his shop. And he's wearing a shirt, and it's a solid color, looks like the garnet color, the Florida State garnet. And there's a gold silhouette on the front of the shirt. And it is obviously a person in the military with a helmet on, the uniform. You can kind of see that in the silhouette, in the position of holding one of those shoulder rocket launchers. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like a bazooka.
Yeah, except...
Or I believe the ones we use now are the AT-4.
But still, you place it on your shoulder,
yeah.
Right? And it features such I guess a combat soldier would be. I'm thinking they'd be in combat if they got one of these things on their shoulder. Except instead of it being the actual rocket launcher or the bazooka, grenade launcher, whatever the weapon is itself, pretty clear it's a joint with the smoke coming out of the end, and it kind of shaped into the tip. You know what I mean? Ain't that something? We're full of all kinds of useless stuff. Asteroids. And then the pot
Navy
shop.
SEAL personal strains of pot.
Yep. But I'd have to put the Auburn home run at the top of the good news list today. You know that out there in Oregon, it's a deeply divided state. You got all those on the west coast, the left coast, as it is often described. That would be on the the western side. The western side of the Cascade Mountain Range kind of divides the state. And out to the east of the Cascades, which is kind of high desert sort of landscape, very conservative. They want to break off and join Idaho.
Greater Idaho.
That's right. So the Greater Idaho movement is gaining steam. That really
Except some people in Idaho are like, hold up.
Yeah, they don't want the Oregonians. That's right. They don't want the Oregonians. I couldn't help but think of the tune I've had you play a couple of times, the Covered Oregon, right after the Obamacare law was enacted, and had the quintessential liberal female out there with her little acoustic guitar, with her little jingle, Covered Oregon. Stay-at-home dads, remember that one?
Oregon.
Here we go.
Long live the Oregon Trail.
This commercial may look
So kooky. That's where we were. What was that, about 2012, something like that, probably?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Covered Oregon.
This one says, well, there's conflicting. It's either 2013 or 2014, depending on who you're asking, and then there's a discrepancy on how much money was spent, but millions of dollars was spent to get that.
it occurs to me, and you may want to check this out, that remember initially the states were going to be required to set up their own exchanges, their marketplaces to sell health insurance, where those in the individual market or even in the family market, if their income were below a certain level, could receive subsidies. I mean, it's still in place today, but initially the law would have the states set these exchanges up, which are just big electronic marketplaces. I mean, it's a giant software development project, essentially. I want to say they spent like $400 million on that, and it never got off the ground. It was talking about Oregon specifically. And states were failing in these endeavors, and finally the federal government said, okay, we'll do it for you. You remember that? Because initially we actually spent a little money here, and there was so much pushback from the states, the federal government stepped in, and I think it was based on a ruling at the court level, because initially it said if you want to participate in this and keep your Medicaid, you got to create these exchange sites, and I think that was overturned, and that essentially they said, okay, we're not going to do it. You got to do it, federal government. We're coming right back. Senator Rod Hickman at 11:05. This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Now back to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Some people call me the space cowboy. Yeah. Some call me the gangster of love. Some people call me Maurice, 'cause I speak of the pompatus of love.
Might that be the theme song for the new Robert O'Neill Pop Shop? Oh, man. Crazy. I just got an interesting text here during the break. I'll read it for you. Hi, I'm Sophia, a recruiter at Shine, Shein. No idea what that is. We have a part/full-time remote employment, and I'd love to share more if you're interested. You must be a U.S. citizen or have a work permit, an account for your salary, be 22, and you got to have a WhatsApp account. How about that? Do you meet our current requirements of recruitment? Wow. Could be a big-time career move there, right? Sophia. Jeez. You know, it was Valentine's Day Friday.
Oh, yeah.
The White House had a rather interesting post to celebrate the big day. Roses are red, violets are blue. Come here illegally and we'll deport you.
It rhymed.
It was against a pink backdrop, by the way, and it was accompanied by the faces.
I mean, it's not very good, but at least it rhymed.
It does rhyme. Of the president and his border czar, Tom Homan. The caption said, Happy Valentine's Day with a red heart emoji. How good is that? Oh, my gosh. My new hero in the private sector, by the way, is none other than the CEO of J.P. Morgan and Company, Jamie Dimon. What about that guy? He is not backing down on returning to work that he is requiring of, to the office specifically, that he is requiring of all J.P. Morgan employees. He had a town hall, and he used some rather foul language, to say the least.
I was going to say, we can't play the audio from the town hall.
I couldn't find a beeped-out version of it. He said, don't waste time on trying to persuade me, essentially, to allow this work from home or this hybrid stuff. He said, I don't care how many people sign that blank petition, because they've got a petition going on.
Oh, yeah.
He said this on Wednesday. He got a few laughs when he was questioned on the new in-person work policy. 950 signatures were garnered on this pushback petition. Employees had been complaining on internal message boards and even started this petition and contacted the office. But he weighed in and he said, "It don't hand me this crap about not working on Friday, working from the house. I try to call you and I can't get anybody." Oh, man. So he's my new hero. I hear him, man. He said, during COVID, I was working 7 days a week. He said, during these Zoom calls and crap, people aren't attending or they're sleeping. Absolutely 100% true. It's a joke. It got to the point where it's abusive. And he made the point, you're simply not as productive. I need you here. That's what you were hired to do. Man, we've created a culture of laziness, as I can tell. He said, being together greatly enhances mentoring, learning, brainstorming, and getting things done. I agree. I totally agree. Of course, they're pointing out, well, the profits surged. Okay, but perhaps the profits could be greater if your butt were in the office. It ain't that hard to figure out.
It's going to be hard to convince people to feel sorry for the remote workers wanting to remain remote when one of the most viral videos of the COVID era was the two girls, quote unquote, working from home as they laid out by the pool.
That's true.
With their laptops by the pool, answering their emails.
And
doing
that
their little piddly work.
Was and is prevalent. There's more victories in the anti-DEI movement. This time, it's Booz Allen, Hamilton. These guys are a huge federal contractor, big-time consulting firm, been around for decades. And they have long been a supporter of LGBTQ plus causes. For 2 decades and counting, quote, we've dedicated ourselves to the advancement of our lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, non-binary, queer, and questioning employees. Questioning? What's that? This is what a
It's the one you want attention, but you don't want to commit to being a weirdo just yet.
This is what a page on the firm's site declared in 2024. But it looks like they have pulled their sponsorship from World Pride 2025. And I'm looking at it, Rhino. They got this huge bus that's all decorated up with a what do they call those things you put on not the shell? Oh, I don't know. The mask around the bus, around vehicles. It's all painted up, decorated up. World Pride, and it's one that apparently Booz Allen sponsors. Oh man, so they're out. Is the tide turning on this stuff, you think? And it does make you wonder, how many other so-called causes do they reject that aren't some ideological play, not for some ideological purpose, that instead they allocate their money to this stuff because they get some sort of perverted virtue feeling out of it, right? Virtuous feeling. That's what this is all about. Look at me. Look at us. We give to the Pride event. Yeah, and that's what's going on there. So I'm pleased to see that a lot of these big-time corporations, such as Booz Allen, of course, let's be honest. You know what's going on here. They're trying to appease the Biden administration for lucrative contracts. That's what's going on there. But now, new sheriff in town, and they've backed away. This is in the D.C. area where all this occurs. And they've backed out. They're a big federal contractor, as we told you. So the new sheriff says, nah, we don't care about all that. We're more into qualifications and merit and capabilities. We don't care about your sexual orientation. It's irrelevant. You can virtue signal all you want. It ain't going to earn you any brownie points when it comes to contracting. So I think that's good. I think it's Trump's anti-DEI edict that is causing all of this stuff. I really do. I'm pleased to say, Rhino, that we're going to have Congressman Jason Smith on the program this coming Friday. Now, Congressman Smith, who hails from the great state of Missouri, he's chair of the powerful House Ways and Means Committee. In other words, he's the one responsible primarily for architecting the budget bill or bills coming out of the House. And, of course, there are competing measures that the Senate is working on. He's going to be on the program. Kudos to Congressman Michael Guest. He introduced me to Congressman Smith back at the RNC. And I said at that point, man, I'd love to have you on the program. And it's taken a while, but Congressman Guest stayed on it. Our content director, Alex Payton, did as well. And she's been in touch with the congressman's staff. Looks like we're going to have him on. Looking forward to that discussion because they are hunkered down in Washington this week trying to hammer out a budget bill or bills. Over there in the Senate, they said, yeah, we're going to go the two-bill route. And in the House, it looks like it's going to be one big, beautiful bill. But not so fast there, my young friend, because there are some rather moderate Republicans in the House that are clutching their pearls over this legislation. And here's why. I've said many times, I think one of the prime targets for spending cuts is the federal Medicaid program. And it turns out that as part of the instructions from Speaker of the House Mike Johnson to the group responsible for the Medicaid program, which is largely on autopilot because it's statutory spending, he's looking for some cuts that could pass through the reconciliation process, not requiring the 60-vote filibuster-proof process in the Senate. But that could include cuts to Medicaid. And there are some House Republicans that are really concerned about this. Representative Russ Fulcher, for example, in Idaho, and also Representative Nicole Maliotakis in New York. They represent districts that are heavily reliant, or states, on the Medicaid program, and they're concerned about this. We'll get back to that and a whole lot more on Middays after this break. Stay with us.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert, here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
A Monday warrior, mean strike. Today's Tom Sawyer, mean pride.
Ah, yes, the great Neil Peart on the Skins there. Rush. Man, oh man, some of this crazy spending that the Doge team has uncovered, it takes your breath away, honestly. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin over the weekend canceled a $50 million environmental justice grant to the Climate Justice Alliance. Oh, that sounds noble, doesn't it? Which believes climate justice travels through a free Palestine. Connect those two, will you? Free Palestine. And I'm looking at the video that the tax dollars funded. And it talks about settler colonialism. Oh, my gosh. That's what your money's going to, man. Insanity. And the Democrats are incensed because they don't really care about any appropriate use of your money or any use which would provide value to society. No, they're worried about and concerned about advancing their ideological agenda. And we all know that they genuflect at the altar of climate change, race, and radical gender ideology. Look at all that crazy spending, Rhino. Every bit of it is related to that in some way. All that crazy USAID stuff, it's climate change, it's race, ethnicity, or it's gender ideology. Every bit of it. Like this one. We're giving $50 million to some bogus group that's doing nothing but promoting a free Palestine. Incredible. Also, the Trump team dug in, found a bunch of money at the EPA and HUD and HUD. Was it $2 billion that they found? Which agency was that? The $1.9 billion? Just sitting out there, yeah. Misplaced is the way it was described. Misplaced. Horse hockey. Our dadgum government is nothing but a slush fund. It's just evolved into one big old slush fund. And
the latest argument that they're really pushing is, well, it's such an insignificant amount compared to the total of the budget. Good, then you won't miss it.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. What matters is that, it was housing and urban development, HUD. $1.9 billion was recovered after being misplaced during the Biden administration due to just incompetence, just a broken process. Incredible. They were earmarked for financial services, but these financial services are no longer needed. You think they're going to call up and say, hey, come recover this $2 billion worth. Carrington Mortgage Services and Saline Finance. This was in August of 2019. Would have been paid a whole bunch of money. Man. And the new head of HUD, let's see, it's his name is Turner. He was an NFL player. I can't remember his first name, but he was confirmed. He'll take over HUD.
Scott Turner.
Scott Turner, yes, thank you. Man, oh man. So the status quo is no longer the posture that we will take, said Scott Turner, the newly confirmed head of the agency. So that's good. That's good stuff there. So it's just sitting there. It's just total incompetence. One of the things that permits, not one of the things, the thing that primarily permits all this insane, absurd spending is the fact that we don't have to balance the budget. There's an unlimited supply of money. You don't have to concern yourself with, wait, we can't pay for drag queens in Ecuador. We ain't got the money. That never comes up. And this is the sort of impropriety and waste and abuse that occurs when you have unlimited access to money. I submit that most people, if they were operating their own household with an unlimited supply of money, they likely wouldn't be efficient or frugal either. Some would because it's just their nature. But a lot of people would say, well, who cares? I can go do whatever I want. There's more where that came from. That's the fundamental problem. And so the result is inflation. $36 trillion in debt, boosting the money supply, crowding out the private sector, and the supply of goods and services produces inflation. And that's what we're dealing with. The Medicaid program, as we said earlier, is one that's on the chopping block, and that could be a problem for us right here in the state of Mississippi. Not only is there discussion of eliminating the enhanced 90% match for the Medicaid expansion coverage group, something that Mississippi has not done, so it wouldn't affect us in that result. There's talks about reducing the match on the basic standard Medicaid program. Again, that's because the House is trying to make the numbers work so that the Trump tax cuts could be expanded, and they need to cut in order to pass the legislation with a simple majority in the Senate under so-called budget reconciliation rules. Medicaid is on the chopping block. I think we may see some action there, but there's pushback, like I said earlier, from so-called moderate Republicans that are concerned about their home districts or their home states. That may be a problem. But cutting the standard FMAP, the federal match, as well as reducing the 90% enhanced FMAP for the expansion coverage group could put financial pressure on the states. There's 72 million people in the Medicaid program today. 72 million in this country receive free health insurance. And of course, the program is wrought with waste, fraud, abuse. Nothing new. The Doge folks haven't even gotten to that yet, to the Medicaid program. They have, however, entered, as you know, the Social Security program, and then most recently, the Internal Revenue Service. Now, at this point, the Trump administration is instructed not to terminate any employees in the IRS until after tax season. Make sure that, given current processes, they can process Americans' tax returns, and certainly those who are entitled to a refund. They want to make sure that's done expediently and efficiently. It is hard to believe that 1 in 5 people in this country are on the Medicaid program. Incredible. Now, that includes children as well. But the House, Speaker Mike Johnson, has instructed the team over there to look seriously at implementing some reforms. We can certainly start with rooting out the improper payments estimated to be some $80 billion in the Medicaid program per year in a $620 billion a year program. That's unacceptable. And anytime I hear stuff like that, I think, man, if we ran our businesses this way, we'd be bankrupt. But you know why we're not? Because we can just print more money. That is the core root cause of all of this insanity in our fiscal house. There is absolutely no limit to the amount of money we can spend. We just print more. And the consequences to us, not higher taxes, inflation. And I know a lot of people are rightfully incensed, irate, mad about all this crazy spending that's been revealed and reported to the public. And they're arguing that, you know, that's no way to spend my hard-earned tax money. And I totally agree. But I encourage you to think about this. The individual income taxes you pay, plus the individual Social Security and Medicare taxes that you pay, only cover 46% of spending. What's the point? It's actually worse than that, in that we're borrowing money for this crazy spending. We're borrowing it. We're footing the bill for it in the form of principal and interest and inflation, because that's what that debt does. Everybody is paying the price for this irresponsible, ideological use of funds. We're stepping aside for a break. Coming back, don't forget Senator Rod Hickman at 11:05.
Now it's time for the Bible verse of the day, brought to you by J&R Restaurant Group and Outback Steakhouse in Flowood.
The word of the Lord is right and true. He is faithful in all he does. The Lord loves righteousness and justice. The earth is full of his unfailing love. Psalms 33, verses 4 and 5.
This has been the Bible verse of the day, brought to you by J&R Restaurant Group and Outback Steakhouse in Flowood. Online at jrrestaurantgroup.com. That's jrrestaurantgroup.com.
Hey Mississippi, Taylor with the Skills Foundation here. I've traveled all over the state meeting high school seniors eager to start their careers, and I'm pleased to tell them that Mississippi is on a roll. Our state is attracting investments like never before in industries like manufacturing, construction, energy, and IT. Right now, there's serious demand for skilled workers, meaning companies are offering higher wages than ever. And that's why we created Skills That Pay. It's all about getting more Mississippians into great careers, jobs with excellent pay and long-term benefits. And here's the best part. We're also giving out signing bonuses to help cover the cost of training essentials. With the right training, you can get Skills That Pay and start out making over $50,000 a year. Many programs can be completed in less than a year. That means that students can make money faster and avoid debt. Get Skills That Pay and take your next step towards a great career. Visit skillsthatpay.ms to learn more. Paid for by the Skills Foundation of Mississippi.
If you're about to start a project or remodel with wood, you need to think Miller Lumber in Richland. Since 1953, we've built a solid reputation of supplying quality wood at a lower price, like Western Red Cedar and Cypress Lumber, as well as a wide variety of patterns in pine, cedar, and cypress. Shop Miller Lumber for the best price new pine flooring and treated lumber in town. Miller Lumber, 551 Old Highway 49 South in Richland. Visit MillerLumberSales.com, 601-936-7099.
This is the opening agri-market report. Today is President's Day, so the markets are closed. With these are the numbers from Friday. At the New York Cotton Exchange, May cotton was up 33 to 68.31. July cotton was up 23 to 69.11. At the Chicago Board of Trade, March soybeans were up 6 cents. 10.36 per bushel. May soybeans are up 5 3/4 to 10.52 3/4 per bushel. March corn was up 2 3/4 to 4.96 1/4 per bushel. May corn was up 2 3/4 to 5.08 3/4 per bushel. At the Mercantile, April live cattle was down 2.27 to 194.25. June live cattle was down 1.97 to 190.45. March feeders down 1.62 to 266.35. April feeders down 1.55 to 266.42. And the Dow Jones closed for President's Day down 165 points, 44,546. I'm Dixon Williams. This is SuperTalk Mississippi Agri-News Network.
I'm Dr. Dan Edney. As state health officer, the community health workers fit in perfectly with improving the health and safety of all Mississippians to help us improve access to care, navigate healthcare systems, and to help overcome social determinants of health. What I would say to legislators is community health workers extend our ability to serve the people of Mississippi. They indeed are the heart of the community.
Learn more at msdh.ms.gov/support our CHWs.
To get the most from your cotton fields, you must yield to nothing. Now is the time to break through with Phytogen Cottonseed for consistently high yield and high quality cotton fiber potential season after season. Armed with elite genetics to withstand challenges from Mother Nature. Bred with tough traits to deliver protection against pests, diseases, and resistant weeds. And with our local experts, we're stronger together. It's time to choose Phytogen. It's time to break through. Learn more at Phytogen.com/breakthrough.
No talking points and no spin. Just the truth as we cover the news. That's what you get with me. It's Eric Erickson, weeknights starting at 9 p.m. right here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Yeah, the word I was looking for earlier to describe vehicles that are decorated, painted up with graphics and so forth, a wrap. Thank you, Casey, Chris from Oxford. Just couldn't recall the word there momentarily. That was about, of course, Booz Allen, the big federal contractor in Washington that's pulling out of its sponsorship for Worldwide Pride Day coming up in 2025, and the article that I caught discussing this, reporting this, just happened to have a photo of big old bus that they had all wrapped up to promote the pride message and so forth. So, free Medicare, why am I paying $185 a month on the C Spire text line? So Medicaid, not Medicare. What I said was there are 72 million people enrolled in the Medicaid program. Medicare, of course, is for seniors who pay into the program during their working years, Part A, hospital coverage, free. Part B, doctor visits, nursing homes, etc. There is a premium associated with that. Then Part D, that would be prescription drug coverage, also a premium associated with that. Let's see. You were right, says Mike in Gulfport. People thinking that they have unlimited funds. My wife is in that group. That's good. Matt in Burnsville says it ain't their money, so who cares? The house cleaning is long overdue. The problem is, Matt, we don't send people packing that are in Washington. In fact, overwhelmingly Americans re-elect incumbents who keep doing the same thing. In fact, they're more concerned about cutting spending, just like I was sharing earlier, the rep from Idaho, the rep from New York, worried about the House's plan to cut spending, federal spending in the Medicaid program, which flows down to the states, for fear that they would receive a lot of backlash and retribution for that, and it could cause them to get unelected, to lose in the next cycle. And that's what happens when you're totally focused on, as many of them are, the next election cycle. Every action, every vote, every word, every speech, every interview. Exaggerating a little bit, but I don't think I am too much, Rhino. They're always thinking about, how's this going to affect me in the next election cycle? It's especially pronounced when it's a 2-year cycle in the House. The senators will say, I don't care, I'm here for 6 years. In the first couple of years, you know what I'm saying, I'm good to go, they can't do anything about it. House, a little different. Definitely a problem. Charles and Matheson, let alone the apparent Social Security fraud. Yeah, there's no doubt. And again, this isn't anything new. We've known about improper payments in these big-time entitlement programs, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, for years. It's just there's never been any gumption, any initiative. And I think it is brilliant to bring in a third party to shine the light. Because then legislators, members of Congress, could take action and point to a third party. It wasn't me, it was them. Man, they showed us all this. I got to act now. Back here at home, Senator Angela Hill on social media, she, of course, represents the Pearl River County area. She went to social media to point out that she had, through an open records request, identified $15.8 million sitting at an agency. I got curious about that. And so I talked to her, and she was good enough to converse with me over the weekend via text. Turns out it's Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality. It's that money is primarily tire disposal fees you pay when you get a new set of tires, and the tire retailer will dispose of your old tires, or typically what they do, I think, is just hold them and then they're picked up by a third party. Could be the county or a third party the county contracts with to dispose of the old tires. There's a kind of a safe way to do that, an environmentally safe way to do that. And the fees you pay, the tire disposal fees, are managed and administered through grants from the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality down to the county levels. That's the way the senator explained it. I got curious about that and started searching for the financial statements for the Mississippi Department of Environmental Quality. I want to see how they presented this $15.8 million on their balance sheet. And I've been away from it for a while, but I'm fairly certain that when you have what would be, in this case, a deferred liability, you need a footnote on that to describe in the financial statements. It's called a footnote, to describe in detail what those monies are for. They're restricted to only be used for those grants. But the counties, it's my understanding, have to request those grants. So this fund just keeps accumulating and increasing. But according to the senator, DEQ only issues about $2 million a year of such grants for solid waste disposal. So they've accumulated a tidy sum that's just sitting there. I couldn't find their financial statements. So I just want you guys to know that our news department is going to help me work on that. We're going to try to get DEQ's financial statements. And I'm not saying anything wrong is being done here. I just want to put my eyes on it myself. I couldn't find any agency's detailed financial statements. We're stepping aside for a break. Senator Rod Hickman is coming on after Fox News and SuperTalk News.
Your tour of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher. And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays. We're live again in the Element Wealth studio. It's our pleasure to welcome now Rod Hickman. He's a senator who represents District 32. That includes Lauderdale, Noxubee, Kemper, and Winston counties. Serves as the vice chair of the Senate Municipalities Committee. Senator Hickman, good to see you. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
So we received some communications from, I believe, your office that caught our interest. And it had to do with a speech you delivered on February the 6th on the Senate floor, where you addressed the importance of diversity, equity, inclusion. You, we are told, oppose Senate Bill 2515. That's the bill that would end DEI programs in higher ed. Tell us about that.
I think that, as I stated, I think that a lot of things surrounding DEI, just to comment on what it is and what it does. I don't that DEI does, and if it does, it shouldn't allow people who weren't qualified into spaces that they aren't qualified to be in. I think DEI is a mechanism that allows people from different backgrounds who may not have a connection or someone to open a particular door for them, to give them or to highlight them in their skill set and their ability to bring a different worldview to the table, ultimately bettering our learning environments as well as whatever spaces they're able to walk into. And I think that is what DEI is and what it does. I holistically agree. If it does something different, i.e. allowing unqualified people into spaces, that's not its intent. And really, that's what I wanted to horn in and focus in on, is that most of the time when we talk about DEI, it's a misinterpretation of what it is and what it should do.
As I recall, one of the provisions of the bill simply states that higher ed institutions would not be allowed to recruit or admit students into the various universities just to achieve some sort of composition by race, ethnicity, gender, et cetera, which could result in a situation, if they did that, where maybe a more qualified student would be rejected for admission and would be instead replaced by a less qualified student just based on those physical attributes. That's what I recall as one of the provisions of the bill.
That is a provision of the bill. However, I don't think that any of our universities are using policies like that. Like, we don't have, to my knowledge, none of our universities are turning down hundreds or thousands of people every year. Most of the time, if you meet a certain minimum threshold, you're going to be admitted into the university. That's why I think DEI is being used to attract qualified students who are from differing backgrounds. Now, I don't really have a problem with it saying, oh, no, you can't have a quota or you can't make space for a certain group of people who are underqualified. But I think a lot of this and a lot of what's going on around DEI are a lot of smoke and screens. And what it really is, it's giving a chilling effect to the positive aspects of DEI, which are the ones that I want to highlight, and particularly what I'm talking about. And again, that is allowing people in spaces that they ordinarily would not have been invited to, who are indeed qualified to do the job or up to the task or qualified to perform in academic settings.
Okay. So what about some of the other provisions of the bill with respect to hiring university instructors and administrators where this bill, I guess, would prevent, as you say, quotas from being established or individuals from being hired on the basis other than qualifications, merit, skills, experience, resume, et cetera, CV?
Yeah, and again, I would say I think that everyone. I'm a graduate of the University of Mississippi. I want qualified instructors at the University of Mississippi because when I left both the undergraduate campus school, I wanted to be qualified to go into the profession that I was going into. I wanted to have the skill set that I needed to take and pass the bar. I wanted to have the skill sets that I needed to practice law. But I think that when it comes to hiring, I think the Supreme Court has long ago declared that quotas and things of that nature are unconstitutional. Right. But again, what looking at DEI in hiring situations does is it says we may have 10 people who have all of these equal level qualifications, whereas we're going to look at this thing on a scale and a different background, a different worldview is only one small thing that we look at that may be something that takes one candidate up over the other candidate. But if there's someone highly qualified, has all of the training, and someone who doesn't have it, I never expect for the university to hire that person in whatever position that they're needing to hire into.
But isn't that all this bill, doesn't this bill do that and only that, just prevents those kinds of practices? What is it about it you object to?
I'm sorry. Yeah, and so I think that it's the chilling effect that the bill has. Again, a lot of times, if you watched, I like to ask questions of what harm are we trying to prevent, and I don't think there's a harm, and that's the reason of the bill. I think it is smoke and screens, and what it's going to do, I think, is going to make qualified candidates who are of other races and other persuasions the way, because they don't want to be seen as DEI. There's also this stigma that bills like this have created that DEI candidates are underqualified. And I think it's a whole undertone that I disagree with. But even more than that, it also says that universities have to close down their DEI offices. And basically, these are not necessarily, the offices do a lot. They work with recruitment and recruiting students and all of that. But even more than that, these offices have services on campus that provide a level, I would say, a level of community and comfort for students such as myself who was on campus. I was trying to think back the other day. I was probably one of the first person I knew in my community or around me that even attended the University of Mississippi. And that created a level of fear for my family because of what they had heard and only what they've seen about the University of Mississippi, which has a pretty, not that great a history as it deals with race relations. And so doing that, I found comfort in having that DEI office and having recruitment and things of that nature I could be involved in and be a part of. So again, I think at some point we all may be on the same page, but I think it is kind of what and how we say it rather than what this bill actually does.
Okay. Well, did you ever feel uncomfortable when you were on campus at the university? I'm a graduate as well.
I can't say that I did, but that's because I had organizations that I was a part of from the time I got on campus. And again, I think a part of that was somebody coming to me and talk to me and actually recruiting me that said, hey, it's not what you've heard, it's not what you're seeing. I definitely won't paint the university in a bad light. I had an amazing time there. I'm very thankful for my journey there. But what I'm saying is that the fact of me going and the fact of me remaining there and progressing throughout took a community and those wraparound services.
Interesting. So the DEI department, is that your position then? It was the DEI department at the university that gave you comfort while you were a student, that you were concerned before you got there because of all the stuff you heard about the school?
Now, I can't say that like it was the DEI department, but I think the programs that were hosted, the organization that ran through diversity, equity, inclusion, and all of those things, a part of that absolutely provided comfort. And I think, made my experience ultimately one where since I've gone there, I've been able to encourage many people from my community to go. And I mean, there are students still there now. One of my mentees who worked at my law firm, I encouraged her to go. She's at the university right now. Because that door was open for me and I got those comforts, I'm now able to send people or to have the comfort level to talk to parents and stuff like that and let them know, like, no, it's nothing like what you've seen on TV and things of that nature.
So it's your position then, Senator, that DEI departments and taxpayer investment in staff in these departments is necessary to sort of assuage those fears and overcome those concerns so that we don't have minority students that would be hesitant to attend the university?
And not only that, but provide community and, understand a worldview for someone who is a minority first-time student in college, and to provide just a safe space when, things happen there on campus. I can think of numerous reasons why I pulled on those resources. And I mean, I get it. I understand the arguments against it, but I think until you lived necessarily in a society where you are a strong minority, you don't understand the fears and the pressure and just the knowledge that you need. Having not,
we got. Excuse me, Senator. We got a break. If you can hang around, we can keep talking. If you can hang around, we can keep talking. We got a break right now. Okay. All right. We got Senator Rod Hickman.
Sounds good.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's do this.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Let's go.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We've got Senator Rod Hickman on the line with us. Appreciate you hanging around through the break there, Senator. So we were just talking about this bill, and again, that was the communications we received that you oppose this legislation. It was sponsored by Senator Nicole Aiken-Boyd, and it just would prohibit the use of DEI across a myriad of facets in university operation, from hiring to enrollment to content, programs, activities, etc. And you were sharing with us that you attended Ole Miss and that you had a positive experience, but you did feel some degree of comfort, I think is the way I heard you describe it, from knowing that there were such resources available.
Absolutely. And knowing that there was community when, situations arose. So, and again, I do oppose the legislation. I do think a lot of things that the legislation proposes are not necessarily issues that we're seeing here in Mississippi. I want to lift up our higher ed institution. I think they're doing a wonderful job at what they're doing. But there are just a caveat of the whole political conversation around DEI now has, in my opinion, become a dangerous one, particularly for minorities of any kind, whether that be, racial, socioeconomic, or gender, or what have you. And on top of that, just the premise of it, more so than anything, because like we've discussed, and I think we've talked about, and I think you've pointed out some of those things, that a lot of these things are, one, unconstitutional. Another is that, our institutions are not practicing these practices in most cases.
Okay, so your contention is that much of what this bill would prohibit in statute, in code, is not necessary because it's really not happening in Mississippi, in college campuses.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I would just say, a lot of it's just a narrative around that. I think the biggest sticking point for me was the need to close all diversity, equity, inclusion offices and that staff. And one of the questions that was asked on the floor that there wasn't really a clear answer to was, does that stop first generation college student program? Some people say it wouldn't, some people would. And so just with there being a contention around whether what this actually does, I think has a chilling effect on things that are positive for education and the citizens of Mississippi in general.
Well, you've used that term multiple times, a chilling effect. What do you mean exactly? Do you think that, or do you believe that if these DEI departments, organizations were abolished in higher ed, that the university would see its admissions from minority students drop as a result of not having a DEI department, or that there would be some sort of problems that could occur on campus, some sort of conflict between students based on race, ethnicity, gender, which is what this bill uses as its premise. Is that your contention?
Yep. Yes. I do believe that minority admission rates would drop, not because necessarily the university is doing something nefarious or because the minority students needed any special treatment in the admission process, but just because, again, there isn't this arm to wrap around and to do a concentrated effort to recruit minority students. I think that population would drop. Okay. And I think that there may be instances on campus where tensions arise to a point where if you had someone working on the diversity, equity, inclusion issues and things like that, they can bring down issues better than if they just fester, and before you know it, you have something huge happening on campus. But just to explain, I use the term chilling effect because I think that universities in some ways will stop doing things that they were ordinarily doing that doesn't necessarily offend this law, because they're afraid that this may be seen as diversity, equity, inclusion, and they're going to lose funding, or they're going to be marked or hit for this particular reason. That's what I mean by chilling effect, is that anything that may even look like diversity, equity, inclusion, even though this law doesn't prohibit it, institutions may stop doing or practicing those things. And that's why I use the example of first gen programs. Like I said, it was asked from the floor, and that was kind of a conflict in what the answer was, whether this bill would preclude those things from going forward or not.
So just reading through the bill here, I don't see anything that would prohibit a university from recruiting minority students, or even have minority students or dedicated minority staffers, administration involved in recruiting. I think that it makes sense to recruit all students without any concern for their gender, their race, and their ethnicity. We welcome everybody. I just don't think they should be given preferential treatment, and that's what this bill would do, is just prohibit these institutions from favoring one group over another. In fact, I'd ask you this question and just get your reaction to it. It says that the institution couldn't promote the idea that an individual, by virtue of his or her race, sex, color, ethnicity, gender identity, or sexual orientation, is inherently oppressive to others, whether consciously or unconsciously. Would you have a problem with that, having that be coded into law?
I can't say I necessarily have a problem with that phrase being coded into law. But again, and I will say I am a person that does my best to see both sides. So I try to think through things as much as possible. And I think I've said very early on, I don't disagree with you that if someone is underqualified or not qualified, then they shouldn't be in particular spaces. But I think that there should be a concentrated effort to not a particular person, not saying go out and find us a black male or go out and find us a white female, but there should be a concentrated effort to diversify the spaces that we're in with qualified people. And so that is where, kind of my issue. And I'll say I've read through the entire bill, and there's not a whole lot of particular sentences and statements that I necessarily take hard issue with. And I think I've been clear, the premise within itself is more so the issue for me.
Okay. Well, not to be argumentative, but you well know that it's the text of the law that matters and not so much the premise. That's what is going to be ruled upon and what's going to guide any efforts at the institutional level. But one of those provisions of the bill says any effort to select or influence the composition of the faculty or student body with reference to race, sex, color, or ethnicity, apart from ensuring colorblind and sex-neutral admissions and hiring in accordance with state and federal anti-discrimination laws. How do you feel about that? Do you object to that?
No, I do not object to that. And the reason is because I think that sounds like a quota, or, that sounds like things that have been previously stated that were unconstitutional. And so again, if I had to make an argument, or if I had to be argumentative, it would be, what's the purpose? If these things are already there and they're already the letter of the law, what's the purpose of overcoding this again? And again, I've asked the question, can we point out instances where, our universities or higher ed is actually doing this, where they're saving a quota, like we want this many Black or this many that students, or things of that nature. And I don't know if you'll find that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any specific effort to again influence and manage the composition of the student body. Go ahead, add.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, like I said from the floor in my question, I like the first part of the bill. The first part of the bill deals with setting up basically a task force to see the efficiency of our colleges. And what I said was, if we found that the DEI practice of our colleges and university was harmful, and they were putting unqualified people in spaces and were, saving quotas and things like that, I'd support the rest of the bill. But I think we should have taken a step back and been able to show these are the instances where this is happening, and this is why we need this law to stop this particular thing from happening. I probably maybe could have gotten behind that.
Well, I think it's preemptive in nature, Senator, that sometimes you see things happening elsewhere. Maybe it's not happening within our borders, but you don't want that to take hold within the state, and so you pass legislation just to prevent it from coming into being, I think is the way to look at that. I don't think that's unusual from the perspective of passing laws. I don't think we waited until people were murdered before we decided that murder was a crime, for example. It's
yeah, and I don't disagree with that. But I mean, I think we're both Christian people, and murder has been a sin or preemptively a crime even in the natural law before time began. So I don't think we could start there. That's apples to oranges. But I do say, if we're having a law where we're saying, hey, our universities need to be studied, and if we're not seeing widespread of this, that committee's supposed to give us a report in a year.
Gotcha.
My issue was, why couldn't we wait to get this report to see what we need to do and how to effectively create a law around it?
We got to go, but we appreciate you joining us, Senator Rod Hickman. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you, sir.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Meow. Get on.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Can't buy me love, can't buy me love. I'll buy you a diamond ring, my friend, if that makes you feel alright. I'll get you anything, my friend, if it makes you feel alright. 'Cause I don't care too much for money, but money can't buy me love. I'll give you all I've got to give if you say you love
The
me
Fab
too.
Four there.
I may not have a lot to give.
Okay. I'm not exactly sure at this point what the core reason for the opposition to this legislation is. It seems pretty straightforward to me. And maybe I used a bad example at the end there when I referred to murder. I didn't think it was, honestly. I mean, I get natural law. I understand that. As he said, we're both Christians, and of course we believe in Christian principles and teachings. And by the way, it's not just Christianity that holds that taking the life of another human is a sin. I get it, but I was trying to just make the point that sometimes you got to react to what you see going on in society, do you not? And you put laws in place before something bad happens. Now, I'm not so sure that we don't have a lot of this already happening. I believe we do in our colleges. I believe there is more of a direct, concerted effort, overt attempt to provide favoritism. And
well, if it's not happening, then why are we spending thousands upon thousands of dollars for payroll for people working in the offices promoting it?
Whom I think are, in fact, engaged in the business of favoritism, preferential treatment. And all this bill says...
Discrimination. Just use the real word.
Well, I was trying to be more diplomatic. You're right. It's exactly what it is. It's the leader of all this crap. I wouldn't say that he's the sole leader, but certainly one of the most outspoken, one of the loudest voices, Ibram Kendi. You know him.
That guy.
I knew that was coming on cue. And I know we've said this before, but this is the insanity of all this DEI stuff. You know what he said. You got to fight past racism with current racism, to your point. And current racism with future racism. I think I quoted him rather accurately there. And that's all this is doing, is it's preventing that, precluding that, outlawing that, if you will. I don't know. It seems pretty straightforward to me that when I read the very first provision there is you can't really invest any effort or influence on the composition of the faculty. That's a nice way of saying you can't have quotas. And he may be right that here in the state, right now, we don't. But could we get to that point? Sure. Couldn't we not get to a point where we hope we have this problem, right? Admissions exceed our resources. Applications for admissions exceed our resources and our capacity. I mean, this happens at a lot of schools right now. The University of Texas is one. Go take a look at that institution. Some 55,000 enrolled. They get 100,000 applications a year because of the state of Texas. And just the population and the fact that the University of Texas really is kind of landlocked. If you've ever been there, it's kind of hard to expand the place. But they have a rigorous admissions process. And when they start admitting on the basis, and to suggest that that's not happening in this country, isn't that what the Supreme Court just ruled a year or so ago? No more affirmative action? Isn't that what that was all about? Harvard caught? Yep. We're letting people in not based on prospective students, not based on their qualifications or their performance in the classroom up to this point as a high school student and are on the various tests. No. We got to have 2 of them, 3 of them, 4 of them. Is that not what's been going on? Am I misunderstanding this?
To the detriment of white and Asian students.
Who sued and said, wait, we're actually more qualified. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, Harvard, you can't do that. That's discrimination. It's blatant discrimination. And there are tons of other examples. Once again, after the George Floyd incident, every dang university in the country had to adopt all these quotas and then built out these sprawling, highly overcompensated DEI departments. All this bill does is says you can't do that. Whether you're doing it or not is irrelevant. And I get he's saying, well, this is kind of a solution looking for a problem. And I see it more as a guardrail against the problem coming into existence. And if you're currently doing it, back off. I don't feel like I'm missing out there, that was the purpose here. Help me out. Am I missing this?
No.
Okay. So, and when I heard the word safe space, at that point, I got to tell you, my heart started pounding because I immediately thought, is it unsafe? I attended the same university 40 years ago.
It's unsafe to those who are perpetually aggrieved and who get in their feelings anytime they hear something that doesn't agree with them 100%.
So what do you do? Go talk to somebody that you just cry on their shoulder to, or what? How does that work?
For the most part.
Okay.
Somebody else who's equally sensitive.
Well, I'll say this. If there's any situation where anyone, I don't care what their dadgum race or ethnicity or gender identification or gender is or nationality, if they are being threatened, if they're at any risk for physical harm because other students or faculty administrators are not just maybe your opinion that they pose a risk, but that they truly are doing something. I don't know what that could be. That looks like it might be a danger to you. Well, that's a problem, and that needs to stop. Do we need DEI departments for that? That's just common sense, isn't it? And I don't think that's going on. I really don't. And if it is, I'd like to hear. I go up there all the time. I don't see it. I just don't. I walk the halls where the students are. I see people of different races and ethnicities and genders. I don't see anything but people laughing. Students.
Once again, it's
enjoying
an example
college life.
of, to the people on the left, the supply of racism doesn't keep up with their demand for racism.
Your composure was amazing on the C Spire text line. So I got to tell you guys, I just texted a couple of friends. I don't know that I've ever been in an interview, Rhino, where the adrenaline started flowing and my heart started beating fast. I don't think that's ever happened before, and I will tell you, it was because I was doing my best to not talk over him, to be respectful, to maintain my composure. I mean, we wanted him on to come tell his story and share his thoughts, and he did. And that's fine. That's great. And I want the senator to come on some more. I thought it was a productive discussion. I hope you guys felt that way as well. He told us his position. I mean, I read the text direct from the bill and said, do you have a problem with that? I'm still trying to understand because I don't think I read anything that he said, no, I don't have a problem with that. Well, then why?
Because he's convinced himself that somehow doing away with DEI is going to have, in his words, a chilling effect on the truly qualified individuals who just also happen to belong to a minority demographic are not going to try to enroll.
I just don't see that. I mean, are you telling me that students, based on their gender, their ethnicity, and their race, they look up the DEI department to see what is in place and available at a university before they consider applying for admission? Is that really happening? I don't know. I'm honest about that. Are recruiters for the universities going out into the communities? You know where they go? They go to the high schools. They go to the community colleges. They're looking for the next crop. I mean, are they paying more attention to, perhaps, and investing more cycles and effort in recruiting certain students based on the way they look? Please tell me that's not happening. I've never seen that. I've never heard any reports of that. If it's happening, you know, if we got recruiters at state universities say, well, I don't want to talk to you about coming here, you're the wrong color, well, that's a problem. I oppose that. I just don't think it's happening. I really don't. And I felt like you're right. That was the point he was trying to make, that if someone sort of expended maybe a little extra effort to try to recruit a student and they were in this minority category, that could be considered DEI and against this law.
And he also continued to say that he was against DEI if it put unqualified people in positions. Well, isn't that the main reason people are against DEI, is because time after time after time after time it's put unqualified people in positions and messed up the lives of other people?
I believe he said at the beginning of the interview it's needed to open the doors, and I don't even know exactly what that means, honestly. I don't know what that means. We've had policies in place, laws in place for decades that prohibit that. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Because I sure am
Hey, this is...
Are we going to do this?
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Keep rolling. 3, 2, 1.
On SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. Thanks so much for joining us. So, Rhino and I were having a discussion that we should have on the air, Rhino, I guess, which is, I remember debating this. I don't know if we didn't call it the anti-DEI. It was more the CRT bill. Remember that 2-3 years ago in the House? I was in the gallery. I think I reported it to you guys. And that thing was a marathon. I believe we had done a remote, if I'm not mistaken. It may have been the Dixie National, the Sale of Champions remote, which I was out of town for last week. But I headed to the Capitol. I sat in the gallery. It was like 4 hours. And every Democrat rep stood up to speak in opposition to this bill, which just simply said, you can't teach that one race is superior or inferior to another. End of story. It was like one sentence. And I'll never forget, man, one of them said, the children will never know who Jackie Robinson is. I'm thinking, what? Who the heck said that? Who doesn't want to teach who Jackie Robinson was? He's celebrated. He's not just a product, a possession of a certain race. He's a baseball player. Isn't that one thing we can all agree unites us, that we maybe have in common? Another said, all the history. And he pointed I think maybe in the Capitol there's a bunch of documents, old works perhaps, maybe handwritten is the way I understand it, that's got a lot of Mississippi history in it. It said, the children will never know Mississippi history. And I'm thinking, who said that? This bill doesn't say that. I acknowledge we have stains in our past, but we're not in the past. Get out of the dang past. You're trying to profit from something that happened 150 years ago. That's the truth. J.D. Vance, our vice president. Guys, if you hadn't heard about this, I was proud. He goes over to Europe. He scolded the dang European Union, dude. He put them in place. He said, you guys, you're not looking like a free society anymore. You've got all these stupid laws against hate speech and crap like that. Just thinking badly about people, you can be carted off to jail. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not
really.
much. It's gone
Scotland
crazy.
said you could go to jail for praying in your own home.
Unbelievable. He said, quote,
CBS teamed up with the German police and showed up to arrest people for posting memes.
I don't want that to happen here. So if we have to pass laws to prohibit that, to just really be more explicit, well, then this makes sense to me.
Shows you how backwards it's gotten in Europe. A dude was burning a Koran, causing a public scene. Dude came up, obviously offended that the first dude was burning a Koran, and pulled a knife and stabbed the guy burning the Koran. The guy burning the Koran was held in prison, or not prison, in jail, for the crime of public disturbance. The dude who stabbed him was released.
So my analogy at the end with respect to murder wasn't that far off, was it? Not really.
But the lawyer's going to twist any argument to make themselves look better.
Vance
that's
said,
just the way lawyers work.
I wish I could say that this was a fluke, a one-off crazy example. This is him addressing, by the way, at the leaders at the Munich Security Conference. One-off crazy example of a badly written law being enacted against a single person, just like what you were talking about. But no, free speech, I fear, is in retreat. So the very system that ultimately led to the abolition of slavery and discrimination in this country is the one they want to take down. And what's happening, you were just telling me, in other countries with respect to slavery?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Africa and the Middle East is rotten with slavery on this day in 2025.
Because they don't have such laws. They don't have democratic systems where the people elect their representatives, a Republican form of government, to make laws.
There are more people in the chains of bondage of slavery today than ever in the history of the United States slave markets.
On the C Spire text line. So basically, he wants everyone to get preferential treatment over white males. It seems to me his message is the exact opposite of Dr. Martin Luther King. He didn't explicitly say that. He just said he doesn't see it going on, therefore there's no need for it. And I've read, you guys heard me, text from the bill. He didn't seem to have any objections to that. I felt like that his position of opposition is based on the idea that we don't need it. Man, Gary in the Berg says DEI is discriminated against white and Asian students, and many universities, from what I read, just want the same standard in the NFL, the NBA, etc. Let's hire the most qualified. So I agree, and guys, this is why I'm upset that the bill that we talked to Senator Parker about last week, Senator Angela Hill's bill that would prohibit preferential treatment in public sector contracting in the state of Mississippi, died in committee. Again, you go check out some of these cities and counties in particular in the state of Mississippi, and they are no doubt discriminating against those who are not minorities in the award of services or the purchase of products from certain vendors. We're out of here today. It's Ricky Matthews, Super Talk Outdoors next. Back with you tomorrow. Until then, stay safe and God bless everyone.
A SuperTalk Mississippi Media production.